Welcome. I'm Jim Boy, and I'm one of the authors of From Peril to Light.
And I'm Alan Bourey. I'm the other author of their book.
And no, you're not seeing double. Actually, we're identical twins. We would look more like if number one, I did live in Seattle and didn't get very much sun. I got a lot more sun having spent time in Colorado and Arizona. And then I get carried away with shaving cream every morning, and so I shave my head. We went to high school in Raleigh, North Carolina, which actually is the setting for the book. And then I stayed in Raleigh and went to NC State for undergraduate school. Alan went further west to that other place he'll tell you about. And then I went to Washington University in St. Louis for grad school. I spent most of my career as a city and county manager, working in places throughout the country, major metropolitan areas. I also worked as a consultant for 6 years with two different firms. Since retiring, I've really taken up being an author, writing. This is the third book that co-authored with Alan. I've written a lot of articles and columns as well for professional publications.
So the place that Jim refers to as West is North Carolina at Chapel Hill. That's where I went to undergraduate school. I then went to Illinois Law School in Champaign-Urbana, and I practiced in Central Illinois for 32 years as an attorney. General practice, a lot of involving litigation. 15 years ago, I moved to Colorado and the Boulder area. Since then, I first did write two books, and both nonfiction books, like Jim's first two books. One of them was about basically my philosophy, and another one was about finding truth. I then established a practice in mediation and arbitration. I did that until September of 2021, when I retired for the second time. Since then, I've been primarily an author, as Jim. So this is a different book for both of us. And Jim, why did you want to write this book? Because you're the one who had the idea to do so.
So I've been concerned, as Alan has, for many years, that the level of divisiveness in our country. We really truly live in a divided world, and certainly in a divided United States. It's very difficult for people to get together, to agree on things. And there's a lot of animosity and angst throughout our country. I think this is really not healthy. And I wanted to write a book to really make a difference with that. So Alan, why did you want to join me in writing this book?
Well, of course, Jim and I talked about writing a book together. And I think Jim is 100% right. And we probably would be disagree that we have way too much divisiveness in our country. When I did my book on second book, which is about finding truth, I found that there was so much of a difference between people and what they believe. And a lot of it is because they don't talk to each other. And because they believe different things, they're not willing to talk to each other. So what I wanted to do was to be able to encourage people to do that, to be able to put aside their fears and their concern about listening and talking to somebody who disagreed with them, and see what the other person had to say. And that is so important for our world to get along, but more importantly, to be able to get something done in our country. You can't get something done if you disagree, and you don't have a way of having a common ground. So the book From Peril to Light is a fiction book, and this was again Jim's idea to do a fiction book. So I'll let him explain first why fiction.
Both Al and I have written previously a nonfiction book, and we really felt that if we wrote a book nonfiction, the people that needed to read it wouldn't read it. So we decided that we would write an engaging, exciting adventure, and a story that would have people really be interested in reading that book. In the book, though, could be this embedded message of promoting understanding, promoting acceptance, promoting listening to one another. And it's the demonstrated behavior of the characters in this book that really bring the message forth and tell a lot of the story.
So in addition to having quite a bit of suspense in the book, we also have 14 characters of Jim's invention that are very interesting and that have compelling stories. And that's part of the reason that we think it can be helpful for people to understand, is that we have a wide variety of characters from different countries and different walks of life. And so that's very helpful, we think, to be able to pass along our message of being willing to and able to listen to each other.
So in the book, there's characters that really bring out some of the major issues that we are facing as a country. For instance, there's a Kurdish immigrant from Syria, and she tells her story of what's happened in Syria and why she wanted to come to the United States. That really is important from that perspective of someone from the Middle East. We have someone from Central America that's an immigrant as well. And she tells a story about how she and her family immigrated to the United States and why that immigration happened and what has happened to her since that time. We also have, for instance, a coal miner from West Virginia, because it isn't all about a certain perspective of immigration or others. It's part of the untold story of people that, in the case of this coal miner from West Virginia, feel like they have been forgotten by a lot of America, which is focused on urban issues. We also have two young African Americans who are from more of a less a ghetto type of background, although they've done well with getting some education. They tell their story. Yet another person is a lighter-skinned African American who has become a very successful surgeon. So there's a multiplicity of perspectives that are provided in the book, and their conversations with one another help bring about this level of understanding. And then it's not that everybody will agree with one another, but rather they will accept one another.
And as part of this book, the first part of the book takes place on a weekend. And as part of that weekend, there's a lot of things that happen to the people in the book where they are threatened physically, they have dangers that they have to face. And it's their interactions and how they work together, which also helps to demonstrate what we think is the most important point of the book. And it also helps them to be able to relate to each other. So we think that action that you will see is exciting. We think that the characters are compelling, and we think it's a page turner. We think that you will want to continue reading. Now, hopefully it won't cause you to stay up too late at night, but it's not a difficult read. So I think that you really will enjoy it, and you really will get a message which hopefully you can help promote with other people.
Now, we believe, and I think you can see in the story, that people generally listen to things that they want to hear. That reinforces their own viewpoint. This is true with social media, and we talk about how that happens with social media. And in fact, when they're confronted with ideas and perspectives that they don't share, a lot of times there's a fear. And that fear brings even further walls up for listening to others and being open to others' ideas.
One of the reasons that their fear is there is because generally there's a perception that in this life, I can benefit only if someone else loses, or if someone else gains, it's going to be at my expense. But one message that we want to show in this book is that life is not a zero-sum game. You don't add up one person's loss and another person's gain and it equals zero. You can have joint action from people that result in everyone benefiting. Then that is a key that we hope to show, not just in part one of the book, but also in part two of the book. So this is the end of our first video. We hope that you liked it. If you do, we want you to like it. And also be able to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, Jim will tell us about the next video that we're going to have.
So next time, we're going to talk about how we wrote this book together, what that experience was about, and how you can cooperate with two authors that live over 1,300 miles apart. We think it's an interesting story that you'll appreciate. Thank you for listening.
Bye for now.